So anyone who's done this sort of thing, you know, making shop videos and stuff, sooner or later finds out that tripods suck. I mean, not really. I mean, I know they work very well, but they just never seem to be at the right height. And you're constantly having to adjust all the legs in, adjust all the legs out. You keep kicking the legs. If you want to get overhead shots looking down at some detail of work or something you're doing on the bench, that's also a bit of a pain because the legs stick against the bench, but you really can't get your camera that far out. Your low angle shots are also difficult. Drop down all the legs. And you're often still too high. So then you've got to fiddle around with these kind of leg angle release buttons, which take you up past the normal leg angles. Chances of dropping a camera on the ground get pretty high about this time. Now the ultimate is a Foba studio stand. I mean, these things are fantastic, but there's two little problems with them. Even the smallest one is way too tall for my basement shop. And the second thing is they're also way too tall for my wallet, costing about 10,000 euro or so. Alexander Chappell did this pretty amazing take on a studio arm using a whole bunch of 3D printed parts, but it just seemed way too much work for me. The solution I like better was this one from Attila's workshop. I really recommend you check that out. It's a really nice build that he's done. Beautiful. My design is largely based on Attila's. I've just made a few significant changes. I need to be able to get this through doorways that are only 69 centimeters wide. Plus, my floor is extremely uneven. I think the guy who tiled it was a Hundertwasser fan. Look it up if you don't know Hundertwasser. Rather than having sort of 3 or 4 legs, I've decided to use the 5-leg system like you get on a business chair. And then I can also use the rollers. The column is going to be 100 by 100 steel. That allows me to drop a counterweight down the middle of it. It's pretty massive. I mean, totally overbuilt for anything structural. The next thing is basically a linear bearing, this vertical slide. The same design as Attila. He fixtured it all off those angle plates on the corners. I decided, since I'm going to be milling all this and I can make it self-fixturing with slots for these uprights to fit in, I decided to make the structure basically held together through end bolts into these 10mm uprights. Therefore the corner pieces are non-structural, they're just covering. Used pretty much the same idea as he did for the crossarm. The crossarm is going to be a piece of 80 by 20 aluminium extrusion. Because I'm going to be milling these parts, I've cut pockets out to lighten them up. So this material is going to be the legs. They're going to have this welded on the end. And then I'm going to poke a hole in the end here to mount normal office wheels. Here I'm just marking out the cuts in the bars that's going to form the legs. Wait a minute, lucky I checked that. I don't want to cut a diagonal on the long side. The diagonal gets cut on the short side. Now I hear you, the purists out there are saying you don't grind welds, but yeah, your welds probably look better than mine. Well, now that the front ends of these are done, for my next trick, I need to do the mitering on the back end. Now, I've written the toolpaths. I just have to remember to turn one of each pair upside down so that I end up with the angles cut the right way. And there we have it. Legs are finished, mitering's finished, and I can weld them in place tomorrow. Alright, next up, let's put these legs on. Make sure the hole is at the bottom. It'd suck if I had one up the wrong way. So what mysteries do we find under the slag? Alright, that one worked. Bit of an inclusion in this one. Well, that's the easy leg stuck on. Now I've got to do all the hard ones. These are pretty easy to locate because they just go right to the edge. So there's two little defects I'm going to need to grind out. There's a bit of an inclusion here. That's just a little one. And this inside edge, I got a bit of a nastier inclusion through there. So I'll just put the angle grinder through those, clean them out and fix them. Damn it, got another inclusion there. I'm pretty happy with how the welding came out. that stand's now ready to go for painting.
The next day.
Well, after the first coat of undercoat, I could see there's a few warts here that look kind of ugly, so I'll just give them a quick knockdown with the air grinder and give it another coat of undercoat.
Hours later.
Now this is camera gear, so what colour should I paint it? It's a machine shop, so I could do it RAL 6011 green, but then again, classic colour for any sort of camera gear would be more of black. I don't actually have any black gloss paint. The only paint I've got is like blackboard paint, very matte. Can't buy any new paint because of COVID-19. Shops are closed for another 2.5 weeks due to lockdown. So it's kind of a choice between these two, I guess. I'll go for black.
Several days later.
And there we have it, the pillar for the camera stand. Now I don't have enough 10mm aluminium plate to make all of these parts, so while the furnace was hot I decided to cast the upper and lower plates, and for that I'll need a pattern. Because you need a little bit of draft angle on the edges to get the pattern out of the mould, I set the table to about 3 degrees off parallel. So to tilt the table I just have to loosen off this big nut here. Okay, it's about 3 degrees. Also here I've tilted the foot of my jigsaw to a few degrees. Just make up a little bog to fix those defects. Historically, the preferred coating for patterns is lacquer, and the advantage is it's very fast drying, it's non-toxic, the solvent's just alcohol, and so you can put a coat on, have it dry within 10-15 minutes and be using the pattern pretty quickly. Here I am just mulling some sand that was all dried up from the last casting. Now for my next trick, I'm going to be casting this. This goes over it. The flask's really a bit too small, but it's only aluminium, so that 1 centimetre of around the edge will hopefully be enough. Guess we'll see. Now to fill this, I think I'm going to use a sprue down through the middle. Quite a big one, which can also act as a feeder. I'm pretty rubbish at this stuff. I never really know when I should use what sort of gating, but because I'm using a flask that's really too small for the job, I really don't have a lot of options on this one. I guess I'll just do a couple of gates, one on either side. These are the two castings I did. The first one came out really quite nicely. Probably poured a little bit too hot. The surface finish isn't great. There's a bit of an inclusion there. But otherwise it even picked up the detail of the damaged chip out parts. The backside picked up the texture of the plywood. I wish all my castings came out that well. The second one, unfortunately, I got the sand a bit too moist. So some of it stuck to the pattern, and you can see that with this rough surface here. I mean, it's going to get milled anyway, so it doesn't really matter. The other side came out quite cleanly. Once again, well usable part. You can even see the little divots where the pattern removal screw holes were. So this is the most complicated setup I've ever done on the MAHO. May seem simple to other people, but I've never done two parts before. This one's got the offset G54 on this corner, and this one's got G55. I've set up the program using subroutines to call the first offset, mill with a single tool, and then switch across to the second offset with the same tool to run the same path. With this tool, I'm going to start by taking off the gates. After I've faced it, I'll take out that pocket in the center, and then clean off the two sides. The rest of my tools are the ones along the front here. Tool 2, it's just a 2-flute 8mm high-speed steel, which is going to be doing all the slotting and pocketing. My spot drill. Tool 4 is a 6mm drill, and tool 5 is a 4mm drill.
One pair of pants later.
Well, that's as far as I got for this week. Still got plenty more parts to do. Pretty happy with how it's coming along. Thanks very much for watching. I know not everyone's interested in all of my subject matter. If you're enjoying this content, I'd appreciate a like. Maybe share the link with somebody who's into this stuff as well. Thanks very much for watching.